goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio. I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Frey Show on 97.1 FM Talk.
Turning Point USA's All-American Halftime Show hitting over 20 million views on YouTube, with Turning Point reporting between 40 and 50 million views tuned in across all platforms. Headliner Kid Rock joining Laura Ingraham to tout the show's success and to discuss why he chose to perform his cover of Cody Johnson's Till I Can't.
I knew they wanted to have a program that's great on, family and faith and great music. And I did it to honor him and his fans because he wasn't able to do it. So I said, well, he's going to have a lot of fans. Let's try to play one of his songs.
Since his performance, Kid Rock's cover skyrocketing to the top of the iTunes charts, topping Bad Bunny's DTMF in the original version of Till I Can't is number 3. And those are your headlines, guys.
Carly Shimkus reporting there for Fox and Friends on Fox News about the success of the Turning Point halftime show. I switched over. Did you? A lot of people did, and that is a tall order on a Super Bowl, during a Super Bowl halftime. Let's talk to one of the people who made it possible. So excited to have Jack Posobiec back on the show with us, senior editor at Human Events. Follow him on X, absolutely, Jack Posobiec, and author of the book Unhumans, The Secret History of Communist Revolutions. Jack, welcome back to the show. It's good to have you with us.
Well, Annie, it's great to be here, and thanks so much. Working with Turning Point USA as a contributor over there for years and co-host with Charlie, when we put together this idea, I've always thought that, and I've said that the inspiration, I may have had the first tweet about it, but the inspiration was Charlie. This was something that he talked about as a cultural touchstone. The Super Bowl halftime show, what could be a bigger cultural event than this? What could be a more monumental moment? But as Charlie would say, he said, look, these are not family friendly. They're getting more and more, to use his word, debaucherous. And they're just, and really just not something that appeals, I think, to the average American, the people in middle America who watch the NFL, who love football. It's not the Hank Williams Jr. era when he built Monday Night Football and his incredible, iconic anthem, Are You Ready for Some Football? And he got canceled by the NFL several years ago and was very, very angry to have done so. So in this case, it's the NFL, really trying to appeal to a global audience at the detriment of cutting off their actual core audience. And so for us, when we looked at this, we said country music, rock music, this has not been platformed by the NFL for decades. And you know something? We think that that's what the American people want. And when you see the numbers come in, the 20 million just on social streaming, probably when it's all said and done, we're looking at 40 to 50 million writ large in terms of all of our partners, the number one American live stream in YouTube history, just floored by God's grace, humbled by God's grace to allow us such an opportunity.
I'm really personally grateful for it because I was at home with my oldest daughter. And I, just for purposes of preparing for the show, is like, I'm going to watch both of them. I'm not going to come back and comment on the Bad Bunny halftime show after not watching it. But I don't think I'm the only person who did this either. I switched over and watched Turning Points live. And then I went back during the Super Bowl. I think I got back into the third quarter of the Super Bowl with maybe 6 minutes left on the quarter. So I think that there were some extenuating circumstances to people who turned the Super Bowl off in the first place. But I was emotionally, personally touched as a wife and a Christian, a mother of 4 kids, to watch something with my child sitting next to me that I was really proud to watch alongside of her. And that Till You Can't song was just on in our house 24 hours before. She's in 8th grade. She was having some emotions about her 8th grade year and friends and, moving on to high school. The day before to that song, and then to have that play in my family room with my daughter sitting next to me, and to hear that song, that like I felt like it was for me. Go forward and watch what the NFL presented. Great production value, of course. It's going to be. Bad Bunny did exactly what he was hired to do, but that was not for me.
It's amazing you say that because obviously I was, privy to that, the plan that Kid Rock was going to do that. It was all his idea, by the way. That's
incredible.
No, we certainly can't take any credit for that. It was all him. And it's certainly not exactly what I think anyone was expecting when they heard Kid Rock as a headliner. You think you're getting a certain thing, and of course we got Ball with the Ball, and the original classic, stuff that he's known for, the hits. But when he showed us the transition of his life after having accepted Jesus, he's known for the hard rocking guy, the girls, the concerts, right? The high flying life. But then he accepts Jesus, and then he comes out, right? That's why they did the name change.
Is that
I'm not
that's a question I have for you.
Kid Rock, then
I've seen
introduced again as Robert Ritchie.
I've seen it discussed, and people are saying, notice this, but I haven't heard anyone with the conviction that you're saying here say that the intentionality of, and I said to my daughter, I paused it right before Kid Rock, they're playing the intro, and I go, do you know what Kid Rock's about to say right now? And my daughter's like, no, what? And my husband, who's 42, standing next to me. Oh, he's 43 now. He goes, my name is Kid Rock. I play it at the same time, and my husband does the, my name is Kid. And my daughter, who's 13,
I was doing it backstage.
She's looking at him like, who are you? But that into talking about Jesus on the cross at the end, the transition, the classical music, was that intentionally there to represent Kid Rock, Robert Ritchie's journey?
It absolutely was, and I'll tell you that. Even when I heard, I said, "What do you mean he's bringing a string duet? A string duo is going to come in with Kid Rock? Well, what? And we're having this, and we got a cello and a violin, which I got to meet them, as they were coming in. Wonderful people, by the way. Antonio and Allison Marin. I highly people keep asking me, where they can find them. I couldn't speak more. They were just so sweet, so nice to work with, and everybody was. Gabby Barrett as well, just so sweet, so down to earth. But then I realized as we were going through and they were doing the rehearsals and all, because when I saw the pieces being put together, that's when I realized he's not just telling a story, he's telling a story on stage through music, through art, in a way that, maybe he isn't even really articulating in his interviews, but he's showing you this is him. This is his story, his salvation through accepting Christ, finding Christ. And then when he hit that song, and I had the exact same reaction to you, because was it about Charlie? Yes, but it was more than Charlie, because and for us at Turning Point, obviously we've lost someone very close to us. We've all lost someone very close. 5 months yesterday. But what he's singing about is that we're all going to go through loss in our life. The first line is about, go fishing with your dad. And you might think you don't have time, but you know what? One day you won't be able to go fishing with your dad ever again. And it's about making the most out of every moment with all of our loved ones. And isn't that something that, even if you hadn't been, friends with Charlie or knew him or had anyone, obviously with something as horrific as this gone through it, I'll just tell you that I had tears streaming down my face.
Yeah.
When he played that, just standing there back behind with everybody, because it hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting.
It hits you in your soul.
And it was like feeling it all over again.
Yeah.
But it was in a good way, in a very good way.
I think that as people who acknowledge and care for the soul, that there is something that when you can't really put words to it, when you try to explain it and you just can't quite get there, that means that it's in the heart and it's in the soul. And that to me shows that there's something that is elevated above the mind, the intellect, trying to figure out the numbers of all of the context of what you're talking about is so incredibly wholesome. It's so incredibly needed right now in our American culture. I say that as a mom, not as a talk show host, but you wrapped it all up in this halftime show and you gave people an option. That's really all it really was just an option, just a choice, not forced upon anybody. And tens of millions of people showed up and said, I'm choosing this. And I have watched the numbers. They've gone up, obviously, since it aired live. People are still interested in it. What was a measure of success? Before this happened, I would be thinking, oh my God, I hope people watch this thing. I hope that this ends up materializing into something that makes a mark. What did success look like to you before going into this actual air gliding?
It's hard to say. I suppose, that whole weekend leading up to the actual show. I mean, I'll put it this way. I can remember Charlie and you know, I don't know if I ever told this story publicly, but right before we would do, you know, an AmFest or a student summit, student action summit, that usually the week before, suddenly he's calling you, he's texting you, promote the event. We gotta fill it up. We gotta get it up there. We gotta get. And I would remember thinking, Charlie, we'll be fine. We've, you know, and I would go to the tickets, you know, the ticket guy would say, "Are we good?" They say, "Yeah, we're good. We're sold out. We're fine." I said, "It's fine." So, and I was wondering, why is he so worried? We're gonna be fine. This weekend, that was me, because I'm sitting there going, and we had no way to tell really if people were going to be looking for it. But we were doing some, I'll put it this way, we were doing some searches, you know, looking at Google search trends, you know, seeing and we saw it ticking up. We really, Saturday we saw it started ticking up, and then Sunday it started spiking, and you know, all the board looked green. I'll put it that way. There were no real red lights, and a couple of fires you saw that you had to put out. And for example, you know, we lost the ability to stream on X because we were at the very last minute told about a licensing restriction that we didn't even know about, specifically for X, by the way, that had nothing to do with you know, with YouTube and others. And so we're telling people, oh my gosh, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we just lost X, you know, people are going to see this thing. But it ended up being actually, and this is why I know it's God's grace, and I know I'm so humbled because I know it's not us, because it was, I think that was one of the pieces that really drove people to YouTube. And then that bigger number saying, oh, well, you can't get it on X, you have to go to YouTube. That led it to it becoming the #2 US YouTube live stream of all time, the #1 worldwide YouTube live stream, or excuse me, number 2 worldwide of all time, #1 US, beat every US entertainment, sports, you name it. This was #1, and that's how I know it's just it reminded me that, you know, sometimes you just have to put things in God's hands, and things aren't in my control. And so, look, you know, we saw those Google trends. We saw the media was writing about it. I'll tell you just one of the pieces, an anecdote, right? But, you know, if I was in an Uber, I'd say, hey, you hear about that other halftime show, the Kid Rock? And they would say, yeah, we heard about it. And then I noticed Billboard magazine and Forbes were writing, here's how to watch the Turning Point halftime show. And I said, wait a minute, those guys know that there's SEO money to be had here, because they wouldn't be writing those articles if people weren't searching for it. And they weren't attacking us. They weren't smear pieces, hit pieces, which, you know, don't worry, we got plenty of those too. But I realized they're trying to catch the traffic because they know that's what people are searching for, because a lot of these digital companies, that's what they look for. And so if people are searching for it, that means there's an audience. And we knew we were going to get an audience. We had no idea it would be that big. We had no idea.
It's incredible. Jack Posobiec speaking with us right now. You've worked with Turning Point and so incredibly closely with Charlie Kirk. And I don't think I've spoken to you here on the show since Charlie Kirk passed. And I just want to give you an opportunity to talk to our listeners. That all unfolded here live while we were on the air, and we were getting notifications that something had happened. And then, you know, we went through it like everybody did, just in real time. And I think about what you're saying. Like, you have to understand that God is there and God is in charge and God has his hand in it. My favorite Bible verse, Psalm 46:10, says to be still and know that I am God, which is like, Annie, calm down, sit down. I've got this. Like, for the last time, I've got this. Turning Point is in great hands. There's a bright future for it. Talk to us about what you want people to know about Turning Point and the mission going forward.
Well, look, people, you know, for folks watching, look, you know, this was a blow that no one saw coming. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a massive loss, because it was both professionally, personally, politically, socially, culturally, every measure, like every single measure. And it's something where, you know, your whole world changes in an instant, and you realize that this is normal now, that And I guess I just want people to know from that personal perspective that, you know, this isn't something that's just another news cycle for us. This is something that, you know, this was our friend. This was somebody that we talked to every single day, someone that we would collaborate with and come up with ideas with, and hey, what do you think about this? And every single day I'll pick up my phone and I'll start. Even still today, I will start writing texts to Charlie, and then it kind of hits me. Oh, right. He can't answer, at least not this way. And it never leaves you. You never stop thinking about it. And, at the end of the day, okay, we had the biggest, show and the viewers, et cetera. And as much as and as amazing as God's glory is there, there's like a little voice in the back of my head that says, I'd trade all of it. I would trade all of it in a second, all the whatever. I don't need followers. I don't need anything. I just rather have my friend back. And I know that's not the most eloquent thing to say, but it's just true. It's just the truth is that, it's not, nothing can make up for that kind of loss. But what you do is you keep going and you put your best foot forward. And I think this was the first event that we've held since then where we're showing that we can be positive again, and we can stay on mission, and we can fight for the things that Charlie fought for and the things that Charlie died for: faith, family, freedom, loving your country, just having a display of patriotism where we can all come together and say, you know what, I'm proud to be an American. I love my country. I don't hate my country. And you know something else? We love Jesus Christ. And gosh, isn't that a great message and I hope my kids watched, and I hope lots of kids watched that, my wife said to me, for the first time in a long time, I'm watching a halftime show where my finger wasn't over the button on the
Just in
remote
case.
to, turn it off.
Yeah.
Because, we have little eyes, and it's something where, people have to realize with Erica's leadership as the cornerstone of the organization, who stood tall when the gates of hell were all around us and the forces of hell were all around us, that this is something where the storm is going to be pushed through. This organization is going to continue. The student chapters are expanding like crazy. The numbers have been through the roof. I don't even try to track them anymore because it just keeps going up and up. And we're demonstrating now that we have the proof of concept to be able to carry out, again, just carrying that vision that Charlie gave us in our hearts and in our minds is something that certainly I'm going to be trying to do every single day.
Well, we're here to support that. And I as somebody who's followed this, just as, a person who cares about the country, which is Turning Point is just collecting those people and giving them an alternative, an option to be around people, to be connected to people who are like, yeah, I'm not really okay with the way things are going right now. They do need a turning point. It's already been massively successful, but I think you're doing very well. You and the team at Turning Point, Erica and everybody, just incredibly glad that the pedal is down to the floor and that you haven't been hindered at all in your mission. It's
Look, the
incredible.
worst thing we could do for Charlie's legacy would be to stop the mission, would be to quit, would be to go home and say, well, the fight was too hard, so we're going to give up. No, that's not how you honor Charlie. You honor Charlie by getting in the fight, staying in the fight, and not giving up on the United States of America, and we certainly don't intend to.
Amen. Jack Posobiec, thank you for the time today. Thank you for being a part of that halftime show. Our listeners overwhelmingly watched it, and we look forward to the next one.
All right, God bless. And look, we threw that together with 3 months of planning, so just wait till you
Hold on
see what we
tight.
can cook up in a year.
Amen. We will be watching. Jack
Just
Posobiec,
saying.
come back again. We'd love to have you. Take
God
care.
bless. Thank you.
God bless you as